Welcome to T News 9 channel. We are narrating the novel, The Cases That Wait. Today, Chapter 71, titled after the line. A line drawn doesn't erase what crossed it. The city didn't notice the intervention. That was intentional. No headlines, no warnings. Life continued at its usual, frantic speed. But something had shifted underneath the surface. The cafe chair, the one he always used, stayed empty for days, and then it didn't. A different man sat there, different posture, different face, but the same kind of waiting. They weren't connected, not yet. I watched from across the street. It wasn't him. It would never be him again. That mattered more than anything. You see, interventions aren't really about removal. They're about interruption. But interruption creates space. An empty space always invites something new to fill it. That's the part you have to watch. Soon, reports started coming in. Not incidents, not like before. These were reactions. People were noticing pauses sooner. They were saying no faster, walking away from uncomfortable situations without feeling the need to explain themselves. These were small changes, almost impossible to measure unless you knew exactly what to look for. But once you knew, you couldn't ignore them. The woman from the bus stop, she emailed again. It was a short message. No one followed me today. I think that's because I didn't wait to be polite. That single sentence stayed with me for a long time. Politeness is often the last thing people shed, and usually they shed it too late. The watch file on this case remained open, but it felt lighter now. There were no new patterns emerging, just faint echoes of the old one. We didn't escalate our response, we just adjusted. The training notes were rewritten, the language updated. We stopped focusing on danger and started focusing on attention, because that's how real prevention works, quietly, one small shift at a time. The line we had drawn was holding for now, but lines aren't walls, they're just reminders, and reminders only work if someone is there, keeping watch, making sure everyone sees them. I closed the latest report, but not the file, not yet. Nothing happened, and that, right there, was the result. Chapter 72 of The Cases That Wait, titled The Copy. Patterns don't belong to people, they belong to behavior. This story started somewhere else entirely, a different street, a different city, but the phrasing was identical. The report didn't name anyone, because it didn't need to. The descriptions were chillingly familiar. He offered to help. He waited. He didn't leave right away. That was more than enough. This one wasn't on any official list. There was no history, no file, just an unsettling sense of familiarity. I pulled out my older notes, laying them side by side. The shape was the same, but this wasn't a simple imitation. It was convergence. You see, when a certain behavior proves effective long enough, others will independently discover it. That's how a pattern survives, even after one source is removed. The officers on the ground wanted to know if this new incident was connected to the old ones. I told them no, and yes. There was no shared person, but there was a shared method. So, we briefed them differently this time. We didn't focus on suspects. We focused on the subtle cues, the pauses in conversation, the specific wording used, the physical distance kept. We weren't chasing a particular person anymore. We were watching for a particular shape to emerge from the crowd. The woman involved in this incident left early. There was no follow-up, and most importantly, no harm done. And that was precisely the point. The copy, this echo of a dangerous behavior, didn't get to complete its cycle. It simply dissolved under the light of our focused attention. Later on, during a case review, someone asked me, how many of these are there? I didn't answer right away, because the exact number doesn't matter. What matters is awareness. You don't stop a pattern by catching every single instance. You stop it by making it fail so often that it is no longer a useful tool for those who would use it. This copy failed. It wasn't a loud, dramatic failure, but it was a complete one. I logged the incident, not as a case to be solved, but as a confirmation of our strategy. Patterns don't spread because they are inherently powerful. They spread because they go unnoticed. This time, it didn't. We didn't stop a person. We interrupted a behavior. Chapter 73 of The Cases That Wait, titled The Adjustment. Systems don't change because they care. They change because patterns demand it. We stopped waiting for reports to come in. That was our first major adjustment. Instead of just asking what happened after the fact, we started asking a different question. What almost happened? This simple shift changed everything. The entire tone of our briefings transformed. We were no longer focused on escalation, on what to do when things go wrong. Instead, our focus became interruption. How do we stop the pattern before it completes? We began training officers to notice the small things, the subtle cues that are easy to miss. Hesitation in a voice, an extra sentence that seems out of place, a delayed step back during a conversation. These are the small things that don't necessarily break any rules, but they bend them. They signal that something is off balance. We even rewrote our official forms. We didn't make them longer, just clearer. We added space for description without accusation. One new section, literally read, describe the pause. We weren't asking about the person. We were asking about the pause itself, that moment of tension. Our community outreach strategy evolved as well. We moved away from issuing warnings and started having real conversations. We talked to bus drivers, cafe staff, and library attendants. The goal wasn't to turn them into watchdogs or ask them to spy on people. It was to help them notice dynamics, the energy between people. We made it clear that no one should ever intervene physically. The instruction was simple: just interrupt the pattern. A friendly greeting, a simple question like, "Can I help you find something?" Just being a calm presence. You see, attention breaks the symmetry of a tense situation. It introduces a new element that can diffuse everything. Then, we started tracking the outcomes differently. We weren't just counting arrests anymore. We started tracking absences. We logged the moments that ended early. People who were in a heated discussion suddenly leaving. Tense situations that just fizzled out. Nothing happening became our new metric for success. These were the quiet victories, the ones that never make the headlines. The workload felt completely different. There was less adrenaline, less chaos, and a lot more patience. Honestly, some officers struggled with that. They were used to a clear resolution, a definitive end. I had to keep reminding them that prevention doesn't have a neat ending. It stabilizes. It's a constant, quiet effort. At the end of the first month, the data came in. There were no dramatic spikes, no repeat incidents from the usual hotspots. There were just fewer pauses that extended for too long, fewer moments that tipped over the edge. The adjustment was holding. It wasn't because the city had fundamentally changed overnight. It was because our lens had changed. We didn't fix the world. We just learned how to look at it differently. Chapter 74 of The Cases That Wait, titled The Fatigue. Vigilance doesn't end, it wears. The work didn't get harder, it got quieter. That was worse. There were no clear wins, no moments to release tension, just this constant state of noticing. Officers reported feeling on edge, not afraid, just alert. To alert. Every pause started to look suspicious. Every offer of help seemed to carry a hidden weight. We had to recalibrate again. Awareness can become distortion if left unchecked. I sat in on a briefing where no one spoke. Silence isn't always a sign of focus. Sometimes it's a symptom of pure exhaustion. People started asking when we could stand down, when this heightened state would end. I didn't have an answer for them. How do you turn off a lens that's been focused for so long? You don't. You just have to learn when to look away. So, we brought in rotations, mandatory breaks from watch duty. We assigned different tasks to give everyone a change of scenery. Perspective matters more than you think. One officer admitted something quietly to me. He said, "I'm starting to see threats where there aren't any." That's the real cost of this job. Prevention pulls danger closer to the surface of your thoughts. And if you're not careful, absolutely everything starts to feel like a warning sign. We had to adjust again. This time, we focused on the people doing the watching. New guidelines were issued, not about behavior, but about balance. The new mantra was, notice, then release, observe, then reset. At the end of the week, I walked past the cafe. I didn't stop. I didn't scan the crowd. I just walked. That was the test for myself. The city didn't need me to see everything. It just needed me to see enough. Chapter 75 of The Cases That Wait, titled The Proof. Proof isn't what happens, it's what stops happening. The report didn't look impressive at first glance. There were no dramatic spikes reversed, no sudden drops in incidents, just a flattening of the curve, the kind analysts usually ignore. But we didn't. We looked closer. We compared data from the last 6 months. Same areas, same hours. What we found was subtle but significant. There were fewer prolonged pauses in public interactions, fewer second offers of help that lingered too long, fewer moments where someone else needed to step in. These incidents didn't disappear entirely. They were just interrupted earlier, and that mattered more than anything. The manager of a local cafe sent an email. It wasn't a complaint, it was a thank you note. People move through the line faster now. She wrote, conversations seem to end cleaner. Cleaner, not safer, cleaner. It's fascinating how language is always the first thing to change, signaling a deeper shift in social dynamics. A transit supervisor noticed it too. He reported less loitering, disguised as concern. More people just moving along without needing an explanation. There were no major incidents to file, and that absence was the result we were looking for. It was the quiet success of prevention. We decided to interview some officers, not for a performance review, but to understand their perception. The feedback was consistent. It just feels lighter out there, most of them said. It wasn't because the danger had vanished. It was because the responsibility was now shared. Awareness had spread beyond official briefings and case files. It was now living in the community, in the timing of interactions, in people stepping back without needing to be told. Of course, one officer asked the inevitable question, how do we know it? Because of us. The honest answer is, we don't. That's the discipline of prevention. It doesn't claim ownership. It aims for continuity. You don't get credit for the crisis that didn't happen. I closed the quarterly summary and filed it under outcomes. There was no press release, no celebration, just the quiet confirmation that focused attention. When applied carefully, changes behavior without ever announcing itself. Later that evening, as I left the office, I walked past the bus stop. It was busy, just an ordinary scene. I noticed there were no pauses that lasted too long, no interactions that felt uncomfortable. I didn't stop to watch. Proof doesn't need witnesses. It just needs absence. Nothing happened. And that was the evidence. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more chapters from the cases that wait.